back here again. So after the inevitable conclusion of the anonymous letter, I have been persistently researching every other mystery in Resident Evil 4 to see if any have fallen under the spotlight. Absent from the somewhat saturated boiling pot that is the YouTube search bar, just about everything has been covered at this point, which is a good thing. As much as I want and will cover everything that this game has to offer, I've always believed that these more obscure and speculative areas are more mysterious and almost unnerving in a way, the type of thing that no one really talks about. So when someone brought up the Hook Crane mystery in one of my other videos, I was immediately intrigued, both by its omnivorous nature and the non-existent records of anyone ever talking about it. During the first phase of U3's boss fight in 5-3, you'll traverse a series of maze-like enclosures before reaching the actual arena, but not before a magical crane will conveniently descend from the sky to save Leon. Most people would dismiss this as a mere gameplay prop disguised as a loading screen in order to access the next area, but I'm not as convinced, honestly. I think someone purposely did this. Just like with the anonymous letter, we have to establish some identifying features in association with this crane in order to gather more context when trying to verify the characters, ultimately helping us to draw a conclusion. There is very little to go off here, but here's the 3 points of interest that I'll use. The person's motive for helping Leon in this moment, the person's ability to lower the crane in the first place from the top of a cliff, and preferably, it would help to know their general location by the events of 5-3 if possible. If a character is dead or last seen in the village, I probably won't entertain their involvement with the crane. Sorry dog, you'll be left out this time. First things first, I need to debunk the possibility of this being a natural occurrence. There's nothing about the movement of the other chains that hints towards this one being able to lower on its own. This is the only hooked chain in the area, the others are support links which elevate the platform where you navigate the maze. This crane was very obviously controlled by another person for the sole purpose of helping Leon. If it was just another support link then, it would have just been a coincidence however. So it wasn't some sort of electrical mechanism. It would emit some heat if this were the case, but it doesn't. I also don't believe that it was on any sort of internal timer or something, because regardless of when you complete the section, the same cutscene will play out. Needless to say, we can 100% say with confidence that someone or something did this, and I think one of 4 characters best suit the description.
Thanks. When we get out of here, drinks are on me.
Yeah, hey, I know a good bar.
The first character that came to mind when initially researching this topic was Mike. He is the closest known ally to Leon when this event takes place. He normally helps Leon at the start of 5-4, the chapter immediately following this one where you kill U3 and Krauser, with Ada showing up not too long after. The motive is self-explanatory. Mike is the only predominant ally to Leon that's still alive during this point of the game if excluding Ashley. And no, Ada isn't an ally. Although friendly towards Leon, she is cooperating under Wesker. Mike's ability to lower the crane also would have been very easy. He would have simply used the chopper to reach the crane from its highest point or find its command center with help from Hunnigan. Either way, this would have been very feasible for Mike to accomplish. The big piece of evidence against Mike's involvement was the fact that he didn't bring any of this up to Leon in 5-4. Their immediate reaction seems quite genuine. His entrance is detained slightly longer than what it should have been had he been in the area this whole time. This interaction in particular is what made me think twice.
Hey, it's about time.
Sorry, bad traffic. I'll cover you.
Although he probably used this as an excuse because he was late, we can automatically assume that he wasn't in the area for an hour prior to this. He would have contacted Leon immediately after the U3 boss fight, or he would have helped Leon kill Krauser had he been the one to lower the crane. To sum this up, Mike is an underrated character, and the evidence and support for him is still very strong, regardless of my conclusion. But yeah, I don't necessarily believe that Mike was around by 5-3, he was still at the pub.
Thanks. When we get out of here, drinks are on me.
Yeah, hey, I know a good bar.
I'll make sure you're the next to go, Sadler.
Sadler's probably going to be a suspect in every single one of these videos at this point, but once again, I wouldn't suspect him unless he had a really good reason for helping Leon, which he does. Going back to the anonymous letter video, I've remarked multiple times in support of Sadler that it was never his intention to kill Leon. Even after the events of the village and castle have since transpired, Sadler never really cared. At this point in the game, he still lets Leon live on every occasion where he could have easily killed him, the closest instance of this being at the end of 5-2. There's two reasons for this which support Sadler immensely in regards to the Crane theory. The first is that he wanted to keep Leon alive long enough for his assimilation with Las Plagas to finalise. Sadler didn't think that U3 could get the job done, and it's heavily foreshadowed in this radio conversation where he uses words like fun and busy. Evidently, he was just using U3 to waste some time. He wasn't adamantly wishing death on Leon, much like Salazar or Mendez. At any point, he knew Leon would survive this. This is 100% confirmed by the fact that he purposely left the tracking device near the edge of the cliff, a perfect ploy in order for U3 to ambush him into the platform. If Leon wasn't preoccupied, he would have easily ran to the service lift and saved himself the 10 minutes. All of this, the platform, the crane, the tracking device, it could have been a geniusly implemented plan by Sadler to buy himself a little time for his entertainment, and I can definitely see that. The second point is even more convincing than the previous one. As stated in the Krauser's note document, Krauser knew that Sadler didn't trust him, and after we kill him ourselves, Sadler says this on the radio.
So, it seems you killed Krauser too. How shall I return my appreciation?
What are you talking about? I thought he was with you.
What are you talking about? Did you really think I'd trust an American? To tell you the truth, I was contemplating how to get rid of him. But thanks to you, that's no longer necessary.
This sounds like he let Leon live on purpose against U3 in order for us to kill Krauser later on. Sadler wanted Krauser dead, more so than Leon, so using Leon as a decoy both simultaneously wasted more time as the parasites grew into adults, while also getting rid of a burden in Krauser. He wanted Leon to take Krauser's place after this occurs, to become his guard and associate. Once again, because it's Sadler, we can't debunk anything regarding his ability to control everything on the island because he's manipulating the minds of every single ganado that occupies it. It was always in his power to lower this crane if he wanted to, and we already have an extremely solid motive for why he'd bother doing this. Finally, the general location of Sadler matches up almost perfectly from when the crane was lowered. We know that Sadler took the same route with Ashley from the start of 5-3. We were following his trail the entire time until the tracking device was found. This is probably how Krauser knew where we were in the same chapter. I think there was only one other character who may have been slightly closer by the time that the crane was lowered, maybe. To summarise Sadler overall, I think every detail matches up extremely well and it's a very solid choice for anyone who picks him, and I struggled to discover a single piece of evidence that hints otherwise, but there's still more questions that need answered.
Ada!
Well, if it isn't the bitch in the red dress.
Looks like we have the upper hand here.
Ada is the first character to appear as a primary suspect in both mysteries so far, but unlike last time, there's actually a lot of parallels between Ada and the crane. Firstly, although not an ally as previously mentioned, Ada has went out of her way numerous times throughout the game to save Leon. Coincidentally, she shows up in 5-3 to save us from Krauser. We also play the section leading up to this in separate ways. But her reasons for keeping Leon alive aren't as pure-hearted as you might imagine. Unlike allies of Leon such as Mike or Ashley, Ada shares a similar motive to Sadler in a sense. She mostly wanted Leon alive in order to make things easier for her, ultimately leading her to point a gun at Leon again in the final chapter unless he handed over the all-important sample. Whatever reasons for Ada's involvement here, it's still credible, although not quite as concrete as Sadler's. Ada only really saved Leon in instances where it was beneficial for her, excluding the altercation with Mendez, so I don't really blame her to be honest. I just think that the sample was more of a priority for Ada at this point in the game, so I don't necessarily see her helping Leon on this occasion, but that's mostly hypothetical. I initially thought that Ada's ability to lower the crane would have been limited, as she doesn't have inside help or a vehicle to aid her. However, I think that her hook shot would have vastly assisted her ability to scale the cliff and reach it if she needed to. There are certain instances where the hook can extend as much as 20 meters in separate ways, so I think this was very plausible. Finally, Ada's location matches relatively well to this occasion. In 5-2, she gives us the hint to jump down the waste disposal vent, the path that eventually leads to the room where we fight Krauser and she saves us. Her extensive knowledge of the island would factor into this also. To bring separate ways into the equation once again, Chapter 4 ends after we save Leon as mentioned, but Chapter 5 resumes at the equivalent of 5-4 for Leon, which is after the fights with U3 and Krauser have already ended. So there is a gap of time where Ada could have feasibly made her way to this location and saved Leon. There's no conflictions with separate ways and the main storyline on this occasion, which is amazing. In conclusion, the evidence to support for Ada this time around is solid. Although not as definitive as Sadler's in my opinion, this is still a good choice regardless, and feel free to bring up any information in regards to Ada that I missed in order to make her involvement even clearer.
Been a long time, comrade.
Krauser is a very questionable candidate for the crane. Firstly, to bring up Krauser's note once again, he mentions two things that help establish a motive for helping Leon against U3. He clarifies the situation with Sadler not letting him in the circle, and he was self-aware enough to know that Sadler was trying to kill him by this point in the game. He needed to kill Leon himself as justification for gaining some of that trust back, which makes a lot of sense. He had an entire speech prepared for when Leon showed up, and was almost playing into the distraction by scattering the insignias throughout the arena. Why did he do this unless he knew Leon would survive the U3 fight, which should have killed him if it weren't for the crane? Krauser also elaborates on his true intentions to kill both Ada and Leon after stealing the sample from Sadler, to quote, "get rid of Leon and retrieve the sample, and then to put them both in a body bag and send them to Wesker." This is a very measured and detailed series of events that have been expressed here, which is amazing evidence for a concrete motive. He saved Leon to kill him himself as leverage for admission into Sadler's inner circle, giving him access to the laboratory where he could steal the sample to complete his mission. The body bag sentence also makes sense considering that we know Wesker wants Leon to die and was already having doubts about Ada's loyalty.
Krauser, go get the girl. Oh, and dispose of this swine while you're at it.
And that US government lapdog, Leon. If you do happen to encounter him, put him out of commission. We can't let him interfere with our plans.
He has no idea what's going on. He's nothing we need to worry about.
He's a survivor of Raccoon City. We can do without the extra distraction. Take him out. Have you had a chance to eliminate Leon?
Not yet.
Because Krauser isn't trusted by Sadler, I was uncertain of Krauser's abilities to be able to lower this crane, but like Ada, he had a way of getting to it. Part of his last plagus apparently allows him to jump 50 feet in the air for some reason, once again disproving any possible evidence against him. And as we know, Krauser shows up on 2 occasions very near this location, and both times were desperate attempts to kill Leon. I actually can't believe the amount of support for Krauser. After I was fixed on Sadler being the culprit, both Ada and Krauser have so much verification to prove their potential involvement also. So it really is split between these 3 at the moment, but there's one more character who I want to briefly mention.
Over here, stranger.
There's nothing that hasn't already been said about the merchant that will negate any possibility of the crane being his idea after all. He miraculously presents himself right before the U3 boss fight as always, making him the closest verified character at the time where the crane was lowered. And as I proved in my previous video, he was the one who opened the gate for you after the El Gigante boss fight. So unlike any other character in the game, he's the only one that has a history of helping Leon during boss fights if needed, besides the dog who unfortunately we don't see after the village section. Ada doesn't count either because this was at the end of the game where she needed to retrieve the sample before the island exploded. The merchant's motive is easy enough. Leon's a paying customer, and after the amount of interactions they've had together throughout the game, I would consider them friends. But could he have had enough time to make his way to the top of the cliff to lower it in time for Leon? Of course. He's always one step ahead, showing up in literally every single occasion in the game when he's needed, which is mostly linear. Everyone knows that the merchant can teleport. That's most likely part of his power, along with the resurrection. So we can automatically prove without a shadow of a doubt that the merchant is everywhere at once, making him the closest confirmed character during the U3 boss fight as mentioned, and making him the second most capable character of lowering the crane from that position behind Sadler. Because the merchant is more of an individualist, his intentions are always pure, and he would have helped Leon simply because he's a nice person, and to maybe make some more money, which is respectable in his position. He lives in a cave for goodness sake. I may have a slight bias towards the merchant because he's my favourite character, but that doesn't invalidate the fact that he's once again a viable pick for this mystery. His evidence is solid, and is one of the only characters who had enough time on his hands to feasibly operate the crane himself in my eyes. Maybe the dog could have helped him with this, as he loves standing on top of cliffs and biting things. My conclusion: literally every single character that I've mentioned have a good chance of being the perpetrator, and that's part of the reason why I loved making this video. This is probably the most divisive mystery I've seen in this game so far, and I'm more than happy to discuss more options or missed pieces of information in the comment section as always, so thanks for watching. If I had to give one final answer, I'd actually lean towards Krauser or the dog.